Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's broadcast. As always, it's our desire to bring the events that are happening in the world from a biblical perspective and also a prophetic perspective. So thanks for joining us this week. On today's broadcast, we're going to look and discover that we have the new Mengeles. You remember Joseph Mengele from Germany did all these whacked out experimentations on people and slaughtered people, 400,000 Jews that he experimented on. Well, we have the new Mengeles today. They're in the medical community and they're the ones doing the plastic surgery on young children, changing them, changing their body parts. People have thought, well, we got rid of eugenics. No, we haven't. It is still with us and it's embedded in the trans movement. So on today's broadcast, we're going to look at where the transgender movement originated from and how it's tied to eugenics. We're also going to discuss how this satanic movement is really meant to sterilize human beings and to reduce the population. We're going to look at how this is also tied to the globalist agenda and how it targets God's dominion mandate for the nations.
What we have going on right now is the eugenic trans movement in medicine. So this is a problem. So what recently came out was the American Medical Association and other groups called the Justice Department to investigate transgender disinformation leading to threats. The article reads the AMA, American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Children's Hospital Association called on the Justice Department, Merrick Garland, to investigate coordinated campaigns of disinformation about transgender operations that lead to threats and intimidation. So for instance, what I'm doing tonight would be considered on their target, would be a radar that they would pick up because I'm spreading disinformation apparently, okay? But anyway, the letter signed by the American Medical Association was sent Monday to U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland at the Justice Department. The coordinated attacks threaten federally protected rights to health care for patients and their families. So what you have seen now, and we have seen for several years, is the medical tyranny of this narrative that they perpetrate. And now the new narrative is that children can have, these transgender surgeries, cut off body parts, and whatever. And now, again, the culture is raging against this, and everyone's calling it out, saying this is bad, this is evil, this is wicked, just like we do. But now these medical associations, the AMA, the AAP, and the Children's Hospital Association are now saying you need to protect us from these groups from saying things that are disinformation, which is actually the truth. So guys, this is just absolutely amazing to me because they're now weaponizing the medical industry. They have weaponized the medical industry and they're doing it again. And that if anyone, whether it's a doctor or nurse or you and I or whatever, are saying this is not right, that's disinformation. And now they're going to bring in the Justice Department involved in this. They go on in this thing saying the attacks are rooted in an international campaign of disinformation. An international campaign? Okay, I guess that would be all Christians around the world apparently, and anyone else that believes that this is child mutilation. Where a few high-profile users on social media share false and misleading information targeting individual physicians and hospitals, resulting in a rapid escalation of threats and harassment and disruption of care across multiple jurisdictions. The letter also called on media companies to stop the campaigns from spreading on their platforms. So they've been in touch with big tech, apparently, and they're encouraging them that anyone that goes against the trans movement should be taken off, should be censored, shouldn't be allowed. Now, we've seen this before. Now we're seeing it again on this issue. Okay? This is not good for medicine. Our organizations have called on technology companies to do more to prevent the practice on digital platforms. And we now urge your office to take swift action to investigate, to prosecute all organizations and individuals and entities responsible for disinformation. That would be me. That would be anybody that comes out against them. It's you, by the way, on your social media. It's you, okay? They are weaponizing these areas against us, against anybody that goes against it. Now, here's the thing. This is so black and white on the transgender, especially mutilating children. That is so black and white. Why are we even having a discussion? Because they won't stop. And you've got crazy parents letting their kids be chopped up by doctors and pushing this, and the school's pushing it. It's awful. It's one of the worst tragedies we've ever seen in American history with this issue. This is from Daniel Greenfield at Front Page Mag. He had a good article. He said some interesting things I wanted to show you on this. He said, when they get caught abusing children, that's the doctors that are doing this, the governments that are behind all of this. The first resort of the leftist abusers, whether it's the National School Boards Association or the American Medical Association, is to label their opponents domestic terrorists and demand that Biden administration use the DOJ to arrest them and silence them. That's where it's going. That we're preventing people from getting health care. Now, the FBI did the same thing to the pro-lifer, and and even though the court case dropped it, they said the pro-lifer was keeping someone from getting an abortion. But he wasn't. Remember that? It was a 72-year-old man that came out of the abortion clinic. He's not having an abortion, obviously. I guess he was an employee or something for Planned Parenthood, and then gets in the kid's face, using rough language, whatever, and the dad pushes him back and he falls. That wasn't a prevention of someone getting health care. But now the whole thing is we're going to turn it to your hate speech that you are causing people not to get the health care they need. What health care? Well, the transgender thing. That's what they're defining as health care now. And that you and I are preventing that. I'm telling you, this is going to lead into legal persecution. The letter does conclude by stating that the medical organizations involved are providing, quote, gender-affirming care to children and adolescents. Did you catch that? Children. They admitted it, that they're providing it to children. That's insane. So they're not hiding it. They're out there in front, and we're going to do this. And if you oppose us, we're going to send the DOJ after you. We're going to tell the media platforms to shut you down. Man, this is a new level of we have never seen in American history. Okay, there's no doubt this is censorship, but the fact that they're going to target people that are going against the trans movement. One of the supporting cases involved Libs of TikTok. You ever watch Libs of TikTok? It's very good. They expose a lot of things. They exposed Boston Children's Hospital pushing claims that toddlers are transgender. Toddlers. And conducting sexually mutilating surgeries on minors. Here, the AMA letter freely admits care of children. So we're not talking about teens anymore. We're talking about children. So they got busted. And so obviously Boston, when that came out, a lot of people threatened Boston, saying, hey, what are you doing to kids? You're doing this to children, man. You're doing this to toddlers. What are you doing? I mean, this is a level of evil we've never seen before. Kaiser, one of the largest HMO, right? It's an HMO insurance, offers a gender expression workshop, and it was created for kids aged 12 to 17. I think that's a minor, right? Who identify as a transgender or non-binary. Topics in the workshop include gender joy, Europia, changing bodies, gender-affirming vocal exploration, gender-affirming wardrobe styling, and gender-congruent hairstyling. So since when does Kaiser Permanente and insurance get involved in this issue? Why? Again, here's my question. Don't answer it right now. Why are they using the transgender movement on us? Why are they doing this? Okay, keep thinking, okay? I want to do some background on this. And I did a little research today on the background of where did this come from. Believe it or not, it came out of Germany in 1920s. So Daily Mail had this article, and it was very fascinating, and I read a few other articles as well that corroborated with this. It said in the Daily Mail, the Berlin was the liberal hotbed of homosexuality and a mecca for cross-dressers and transsexuals, where the first male-to-female surgery was performed until the Nazis came to power. And it was in a new book, this book. Anyway, what it goes on to say is the science of transsexuality was founded in Berlin at the Institute of Sexual Science, again, where the first male-to-female surgery was performed. Okay, this is like back in 1920s, guys, 1920s. The words homosexual or transvestite were German innovations. There was an uninhibited urban gay sexual scene and a vast homosexual subculture that flourished in Berlin under Germany's Weimar Republic. Sexual experimentation between the same sexes and medical advances of helping genders trapped within the wrong body. Does that sound familiar? Trapped within the wrong body. Now, let's take a break right now, and I want you to think about Germany for a minute. The apostasy that is currently in America theologically came from the 1800s in Germany with higher criticism. It made its way to America in the late 1800s and early 1900s. It hit America full-fledged, and apostasy began at Union Theological Seminary in Manhattan in New York. That's the first instance that it hit America, and it was in the early 1900s. And from there, we have now the great apostasy happening in America. But I tell you that to tell you that the origins were in Germany. The origins of the transgender movement right now, I'm telling you, it's in the same place, in Germany. Why is that? Why is everything bad coming out of Germany? The Nazis, the Holocaust, Germany, right? We're even talking about Germany right now with the energy, cutting themselves off from all. There's something going on there. There's something really bad going on there. As I've mentioned before in studying Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, the western leg of Daniel's metallic man of Rome is centered, and it ended up in Germany after Otto I had taken control and called himself Kaiser. And Germany has been where the foot is of the metallic man of Daniel chapter 2. And there's a lot of bad stuff coming out of that area. Evil, wicked stuff coming out of that area for some reason. It stopped when the Nazis stopped it, but then at the same time, then Hitler surrounds himself with homosexuals and transvestites and all kinds of other people. And then they molested the Hitler Youth boys. So there was, Hitler was apparently, came out against it, but then he allows it around his SS troops and all around him. He was letting pedophilia happen and homosexuality. I mean, that's what it was. That's all. And the book you want to read if you want to understand more of that is called The Pink Swastika. Hitler got his ideas of pedophilia and homosexuality, obviously was there in Germany, but a lot of the pedophilia came from his dealings with the Islamic nations. And especially, that's because if you look in Islam, they have the same culture that's going on at the higher levels. They molest young boys, and they don't think it's homosexuality. I mean, Yasser Arafat was really big on that. And so you have this whole mess going on there. Okay, so if I'm telling you that all the theological problems we're having today stem from Germany, and then we have the transvestite movement, the trans movement now stemming from Germany, I'm telling you, there's something there. There's something there, and again, it centers in Daniel's metallic western leg. Let's continue on, okay? Let's just continue on. Watch this. In this article, it had all these old pictures from the 1920s and 1930s in Germany. And these are all transvestites, by the way. These are trainees in Germany at the time. These are guys. This was big in Germany, a big movement, okay? So in Germany, more than 100 years ago, shaped our understanding of gay identity today. It was in Berlin where scientists concluded the same-sex love was a natural inborn characteristic and not merely a perversion of a normal sexual tendency. Sex reassignment surgery had an earlier life in an unexpected time and place, the 1920s in Germany. That's where it started. Several doctors there performed such surgeries using analog technology and organic hormones. They worked under a new paradigm. What if they could make somebody's body fit for their mind instead of forcing their mind to fit to their body? What's the problem with that statement? That goes against Genesis. That we're going to fit your body to what you think you are. Instead of being told who you are by God and your body identifying with that identity, we're gonna turn the tables upside down. Now, here's the interesting thing. The theological collapse in Germany happened in the 1800s. So it doesn't shock me that they turned to this in the 1920s when were already collapsed theologically in the 1800s. And the theological collapse already continued to go on until the majority of the Germans were convinced that the Jews are the problem, right? I'm a little shocked by this, but in one sense, I'm not. This was a Jewish man in Germany, Magnus Hirschfeld, whose later work would be vital to the early research into biological aspects of trans identity. Hirschfeld saw himself as an activist, constantly referring to a motto of, look at this, justice through science. Two of Hirschfeld's colleagues performed numerous reassignments and began to realize that their patients tended to be wealthy Germans. Not the poor, it was the wealthy Germans that were doing this. I wonder why. Have you ever noticed that the LGBT community is very wealthy? Why is that? By the early 1930s, people came from around the world to undergo reassignment surgery in Berlin. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Interesting, isn't it? Let's continue on. This came from another source, history.com, and what I was looking into was a connection with Joseph Mengele and these transgender surgeries, reassignment surgeries. And in his eugenics program, he has them. But we're going from the sex change, now we're moving into the Hitler's time, okay? So eugenics itself was rooted in twin research. Francis Galton, a British scientist who coined the term eugenics in 1883, had used twin studies in his earliest eugenic research, deeply influenced by his half-cousin, Charles Darwin's book, Origin of Species. Galton became intrigued on how and whether humans passed along traits like intelligence and preoccupied with the potential of breeding desirable genetic traits into humans. Now, what I want to make note of is eugenics is all part of DNA research, okay? Genetics. This is the earliest things that we're seeing that were involved in genetic research, okay? And they were starting to do it, obviously, with twins, with Mengele. So Mengele, Dr. Mengele, he actually escaped Germany, and in 1986, apparently they dug up his bones somewhere down in South America somewhere where he lived for a long time and was hidden for a long time. He got out of Germany when he saw Germany was going to fall. This is the guy who was doing these crazy experiments on twins and people in the Holocaust. I think he killed over like 400,000 people, just butchering them, doing all kinds of experiments on them. So what Mengele would do in experimentation on the Jews. He would just see the ones that could be good workers. He sifted them off and brought the ones that were sick or whatever over here, and then he'd either gas them, do experiments on them, or do whatever. I mean, he literally was so evil, like on twins. He wanted to see how twins reacted, so he literally would cut off one arm of one twin and try to attach it on the other arm of the other twin. He was a butcher, and he did all kinds of weird stuff and messed with their eyes, put solutions, and this guy was awful. I mean, the lowest part of the lake of fire is reserved for him, obviously. So we know the eugenics experiments, we know the experiments that he was doing on the Jews, and basically what I found in the research is he was experimenting with sex changes as well. Eugenists held genetics responsible for undesirable characteristics, social conditions like criminality and poverty. They believed that selective breeding could be used to encourage social acceptable behavior and wipe out undesirable tendencies. Why is that unbiblical to say that? They believed that you could breed out bad tendencies in the DNA code, like criminality. But what's the problem? What's the answer? It's a sin nature. That's why people act bad. It's not their genetics. It's their sin nature. And sin nature is killing them, obviously, but the sin nature is what causes them to sin. And so this is what happens when you totally divorce the German people from God, 1800s theology, then you move into science that has no God, and then they start playing God and messing with DNA, messing with genetics, which is exactly the same pattern you see today. You kick God out of our culture, and the scientists believe they're gods, and they're going to create gods through the DNA. And that's what Mengele and all of them were about. I mean, the guy got called the angel of death. He loved to do experiments on people, especially even messing with sex changes. Now, let's bring it up to today. So we saw that pattern in Germany. That's where it came from, and it continued on even with the Nazis. So now we're here today. And basically in this article, and what a lot of people are saying is, we're seeing eugenics back again by transgenderism. It's just the other name for eugenics, okay? So the writer of the article, Jeffries, points out the practice of eugenics has returned with transgender. With the cooperation of the family court, children as young as 10 are being put on puberty-delaying drugs after being diagnosed with gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria. There is the expectation that they will be moved on to cross-sex hormones at 16, receive surgery to amputate their genitals at 18. This is Mengele. You're seeing the eugenics movement again. And the eugenics movement comes directly from Satan. That's who's doing it, okay? It's all satanic, okay? There are similarities between the eugenic sexual surgeries and drug treatments of the past and the transgendering of children now. That's what I just showed you, the eugenic sexual surgeries of the past that were happening in Germany, 1920. Okay, now it's here. Both practices are based on the idea that certain problematic behaviors have a biological basis and can be cured by treatments which alter sexual characteristics. It's the same thing. We'll breed it out of them. Instead of breeding, we'll get to their DNA. We'll just change them, their bodies. It's eugenics. It is eugenics. The practice of transgendering children is a consequence of the increasing normalization of the practice of transgendering adults. That's why it's happening. So this is not because all of a sudden we have a group of kids all over the nation that feel this way. How all of a sudden did it pop up? Because it's a movement among adults doing this. And the kids are seeing this on social media. The effects of the drug treatments and sexual surgeries that make up the transgendering of children can damage their reproductive rights. It's going to sterilize them, as well as their bodily integrity and future health. Treatment with puberty-delaying drugs leads to sterilization when followed by administration of cross-sexual hormones at 16. As a result, semen and ova do not come to maturation. It's ruining kids, ruining a generation of adults. Here's a psychiatrist from Johns Hopkins. He says mental health departments recently have been seeing an increasing number of patients suffering from gender dysphoria. Dr. Paul McHugh, a distinguished service professor at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, who has served as director of the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, psychiatrist in chief at Johns Hopkins Hospital, he's got a long title, asserted that this phenomenon is not founded in science, but rather is a tyranny of popular sentiment. Oh, so it's not scientific. So I thought medical was supposed to be scientific. You see what's going on here? We have a false narrative being perpetrated through our society, through our medical, and now they're going to turn the DOJ on us. 2019, McHugh, together with Dr. Lawrence Mayer, published Sexuality and Gender Findings from Biological, Psychological, and Social Sciences in the New Atlantis. Their article pointed out that science does not support the transgender movement. He points out that we still don't know a great deal about the provenance of homosexuality and transgender or gender dysphoria. We have no particular reason to believe that either phenomenon is innate or biologically based or immutable. That's huge, because that goes against what they're saying. Well, they're born that way. It's innate. It's a biological thing. You can't argue with it. And he is saying, no, we don't find anything about that. And this is Johns Hopkins. It's not innate. And we see that it can change. People can change. It's not immutable, he's saying. It's the lie of the devil to say that you can't change. So what he was talking about, right, was that it's not based on science, it's based on a trend. The trend we see with adults, a trend that's going on in the communities and everywhere around the world. And now we even have it in the cartoons. So now the new Scooby-Doo movie makes Velma explicitly gay. So here's a clip of it.
And as promised, here are your Scooby snacks. Jinkies.
So Velma's gay. So at the end of the day, what you're seeing here is, why would they put that in a cartoon? Right? Why are they doing it into a cartoon? It's to get the children. It's eugenics. According to McHugh, 85% to 95% of children who believe that they are the opposite sex and are allowed to go through puberty normally decide to remain their actual gender. However, if these children are given puberty blockers, only 5% or 10% decide to return to their actual gender. Now, wait a second. They know that if you let a kid just go through puberty, everything just works itself out, because they even said, I read some of the guys that talk about going through puberty. It's like a lot of it's a mystery, man. The body's changing, all kinds of weird stuff's happening, but it normalizes out, okay? So 85 to 95% return back to normal, okay? But you give them a puberty blocker, they're not coming back. Wait a second. They know that. So they're not wanting them to come back. Why? Why? What does it do to them? It sterilizes them. You got it. Did you hear her? Population control. Population control. It's one of the other hooks in the water for population control is the transgender movement. Now watch this video by Tucker. He did a great job. If you get Tucker's, it's not on the Fox network, but he has a whole little deal that you subscribe to, and he does these interviews. He did a whole thing on the transgender movement, which is phenomenal. I recommend you watch it. Here's a little piece of what they found, and it's talking about what the doctors are doing, okay?
From ancient times, cults have practiced castration, self-mutilation, sterilization, often on children. Our priests in the modern transgender movement robe themselves in lab coats. They describe their rituals as affirmative care. Hormones, puberty blockers, disfiguring surgeries. These are the ultimate rites of transformation.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Michael Laidlaw. I'm an endocrinologist, Rockland, California. Puberty blockers are being presented as a temporary pause in puberty. You're not really pausing, you're actually inducing a medical condition, you'll end up with weakened bones as an adult. I don't see any other way around it. Hormones are important for brain development as well. There is a study or two showing a decrease in IQ. In the male, it's going to lower testosterone levels, which will cause erectile dysfunction, problems with orgasm. There's a TV show, a TLC show, where a person named Jazz was born as a boy. Jazz describes the sexual dysfunction that developed from puberty blockers in the show.
I haven't experienced any sexual sensation. So when the doctors are saying an orgasm is like a sneeze, I don't even know what she's talking about, because when I sneeze, it definitely doesn't feel that great. I don't know. I haven't experienced it.
The blockers themselves are having a psychologically addictive sort of effect. The studies are showing that people who were on puberty blockers and paused, 100% of them went on to take cross-sex hormones or opposite-sex hormones at very high doses and just completely destroy the ability to have children. You know, a child before reaching adulthood, they cannot make a decision, an informed decision about whether or not they want to have children when they're 25 or 30.
Oh my God, this is testosterone. It's going into
my school guidance counselor and my school therapist and everyone at the clinic that I went to for the testosterone and everyone at my university were extremely encouraging of it. Everyone's different, but most women just lose their menstrual cycle. But eventually, long term, it can cause what's called uterine atrophy. All your reproductive organs will start to fail, and the tissue starts to die. And it's actually pretty standard for women who are on testosterone to get a hysterectomy after a few years.
This is it. This is my uterus.
And I was even advised about this. They didn't really tell me why I would need a hysterectomy, but they just said, you may need a hysterectomy.
You just go on to the next thing. And after cross-sex hormones, perhaps surgery. It's the worst form of child abuse.
If you want breasts at a later point in your life, you can go and get them.
These surgeries are highly customizable. You can get or lose any body part that you need.
By what standard of medical ethics are you legitimizing the removal of healthy body parts?
This is a very slow, sinister process of destruction. And the road back for many people ends up in suicide.
It is the worst thing I've ever seen. And Tucker did a great job. I recommend watching both episodes. He has 2 episodes on it. But when you see this and you see the doctors behind that are mutilating kids, this is a level of evil we have not seen before. And we've seen that in history with Joseph Mengele doing things like this. We're there. We're there. And I want to show you this because they're about to get ready to target anyone speaking out against this. That this will be the new form of persecution that you and I receive if we go against this. So now we need to do some deduction. They have to figure out ways to shut Christians up. They have to figure out ways to destroy Judeo-Christianity in America. And so they're going to do it through multiple things, whether that's worship of earth, of Gaia worship, either that's the LGBT, or now it's the trans, or it's Islamophobia, or whatever. What they're doing is attacking us on all fronts, okay? That's what this is about. And then at the same time, they get a double punch out of this. Because at the same time, not only we're going to persecute the Christians who are against this, but we can depopulate the planet. See, the whole thing about the planet, of saving the planet, is depopulate it. Okay? So they're doing everything they can to depopulate. Why do you think they're not going to solve the fentanyl problem? There's no war on drugs. Because you know why? They don't care. Well, they die, they die. That ends the surplus. Remember, like Dickens wrote that into Scrooge. You remember that line in Scrooge? And they came up to Scrooge. The guy's asking for donation for Christmas to the poor or whatever. And they go up to Scrooge, and he goes, "Well, don't they have the welfare system there?" He goes, "Well, they're going to die. They don't have it." He goes, "Well, that will get rid of the surplus population then." And Dickens actually wrote that in. because that's what they were thinking about back then of depopulation. There's too many people. It's very Malthusian, very evil. Okay, so you have this overarching idea, depopulate the planet. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we have to have a reason for it. Well, first of all, we'll depopulate the planet because we're going to save the planet. So that means we're going to cause starvation off of fossil fuels. People will die of cold or whatever. Boom, depopulation. Then you go over to the transgender. Depopulation of the planet because it sterilizes people. Let's push the LGBT agenda. Why? What does that do to the planet? It stops reproduction. So what you're watching is the real story behind it. It's to stop the population from growing and get as few people on the planet as possible. Now, why is that satanic? What did God say in Genesis? Fill the earth, multiply. It's going, now this is a great book I recommend. Henry Morris, God and the Nations. Get the book, God and the Nations by Henry Morris. Because Henry Morris is going to go through how important the dominion mandate is in Genesis of reproducing, multiply, and establish nations that harness the natural resources of that area. So when you see them going after the population and not harnessing the resources of the earth for the betterment of humanity, you're seeing a flat out attack on the dominion mandate. And that's both aspects. Harness natural resources, have dominion, and then multiply. Every nation will stand in front of God to be judged by the dominion mandate. And then you and I, part of our bema seat is how well we kept the dominion mandate in our own personal lives. How did you contribute to humanity to make life better? That's one of the things Christ will look at. Because the dominion mandate is like for every human being, not just believers, it's for every human being. Did you make the planet, or not the planet, but the environment for humans better by what you did? There goes the day traders, they're gone. They're gonna be judged because they don't do anything for anybody except themselves. But you see, so when you're seeing this transgender movement, it's an attack on the dominion mandate. And that's what you have to understand. That's the real spiritual issue. And that, therefore, it's satanic and it's being satanically driven because Satan will always do everything that's anti-human. He wants us all dead. He wants no human beings on this planet. And that's what he's doing through the elites. Okay, any questions so far? I know that was a lot, but I needed to do some background on that. Okay. So the interesting thing is you see how Satan is working. He takes the Christianity out and then replaces it with let's call it scientism, right? If you have no God, what else do you have? Well, you just have these scientists and whatever. And that's what really Yuval Harari and the world elites are about. It's about scientism, technocracy. We're like, what did Yuval Harari say? He said, we're going to become the new gods, and the gods in the clouds are the Silicon Valley, those kinds of clouds, not the God above the cloud. And so the same thing you see happen in Germany and Western Europe is the same thing you're seeing in America right now. And we shouldn't be shocked that we're seeing gender mutilations. It's Mengele all over again. Okay, any other questions? Where are we at? All good, all good, all good. All right, my friends, we got to get running and let's pray. Father, thank you, Lord, for this evening that we could gather together and study in depth about what's going on in our world. And it's absolutely shocking, Lord, to see what we're seeing, the evil that's out there, the craziness. But Father, we need to warn people. We understand what's happened. We understand the spiritual battle. And so we have a job to do. And so Lord, help us to resist this movement and have to suffer the consequences, whether it's being censored or whatever. Help us to have the strength to deal with those consequences. Bless us as we go now in Jesus' name.
Well, folks, that brings us to our conclusion today. Again, a couple of reminders before we go. If you're looking for a remnant church, try our church tracker online on our website and look in your area. If you can't find a church, look on our map and see if there's one in your area. Again, you might have to drive several hours or whatnot to get to one of these remnant churches, but it might be worth it for you. Anyway, if you are aware of a remnant church that you attend or you're aware of, let us know. We'll vet them. We'll make sure they fit our criteria for it, and then we can put them on our church map. So you can kind of be a scout for us. And if you really, really want to get in depth on that, we could have you go and interview the pastor there and see what they're really made out of. Because a lot of times people's statement of faith doesn't match the pastor. The pastor hasn't even looked at the statement of faith. So sometimes you have to coordinate that. And the only way you can do that is interview the pastor. Anyway, check that out if you're looking for a church, or if you want to help us in growing that database, let us know. Also, make sure you're on our text alert system so we can text alert you if things happen, if we're having a prophecy conference or I'm speaking at one, or something's happened on one of our platforms. We just want to make sure you're informed of what's going on. And then also, if the Lord puts it on your heart to pray for us, we would appreciate any prayers that we have from you, because we're constantly being attacked. It's a very difficult spiritual warfare that we're undergoing because we're on the tip of the spear. And so we get a lot of attacks. So pray for us. Pray for our protection, okay? And also, if the Lord puts it on your heart to help us financially, that would be greatly appreciated. We want to thank all of you who have contributed to our ministry. It has propelled us way beyond what we thought. As of right now, we're building our own church. There's a delay on some of the parts coming from China. Obviously, the electrical panels delayed. But also, we're starting a school simultaneously because the public schools are no good. We're done with them, and we want to provide an environment that of safety and security for our kids coming out of the public schools, and that where they can be taught biblical values and principles where we're involved in their education, and not this wokeism stuff, critical race theory, or anything like that. So we're starting a school, so we need help in that. And then we're also just doing all kinds of things with this ministry. We have to hire more people to edit videos. That costs a lot of money to run this online ministry program, but we think it's worth it. We know from you it's worth it. And so we want to keep this going and give the best quality possible. So you could help in that endeavor, or you can just help in our general fund. Any which way, it helps us continue to expand our ministry and reach more people for the Lord. So if the Lord puts it on your heart, then that would be great. Anyway, remember what the Lord said. When you see these things begin to happen, like the eugenics movement through the transgender movement, look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near. God bless you. We'll see you next time.